The night air tasted of gasoline and tension. Sophia Carter eased her battered '89 Mustang onto the grid at Riverside Speedway, the headlights casting a thin silver glow on the worn asphalt. The roar of engines vibrated through her chest like a second heartbeat. Every other driver had polished machines gleaming under the floodlights, sponsored, tuned, perfected. She had this, a car she and her father had rebuilt with grease-stained hands and stubborn hope. From the next lane over, a man leaned out of his glossy Camaro, his helmet tilted back just enough for her to see the smirk. Well, look who thinks she belongs here, he sneered, loud enough for the others to hear. Daddy's little princess, playing race car driver. Laughter rippled across the line. Another voice chimed in, sharper, meaner. That junker won't even make it to lap 2. The word struck, but Sophia only tightened her grip on the wheel, her knuckles pale under the floodlights. The Mustang rattled like an underdog, ready to prove something. They didn't understand. They couldn't. Every insult was gasoline poured on the fire burning inside her. Her eyes flicked down to the faded photo taped to her dashboard, a younger Sophia on her father's shoulders, both of them grinning, engine grease smudged across his face. Daniel Carter, the man everyone once called Lightning Dan, the mechanic who could make dead engines breathe again. She whispered, almost too softly for herself to hear, "This one's for you, Dad." The track marshal raised the flag. For a single suspended heartbeat, the stadium seemed to fall silent. Sophia revved the engine, the Mustang's guttural growl drowning out the laughter. Her pulse raced in time with the tachometer's needle. Let them laugh now. The smell of oil and iron had been Sophia's childhood perfume. Long before she sat behind a wheel, she had lived among sockets and wrenches, sprawled across the hood of whatever car her father was working on. "Hand me that 10mm, kiddo," Daniel would call, his deep voice echoing in the dim-lit garage. She'd pass it to him with hands already blackened by grease. "Someday," he'd add with a crooked grin, "you'll know these engines better than I do." By 12, she could replace a carburetor faster than most seasoned mechanics. By 15, she was diagnosing problems that baffled men 3 times her age. The garage wasn't just home, it was her sanctuary. The hum of tools was her lullaby. The smell of oil was comfort itself. Daniel never once told her she was too fragile, never once said, "Because you're a girl." Instead, he challenged her, pushed her harder, believed in her without question. On her 16th birthday, he wheeled out the wreck of a sun-faded Mustang, its paint peeling, its engine coughing like a smoker's lungs. "It's not pretty," he admitted, "but it's got a soul. Just like you. Let's see what you can make of it." Nights blurred into years. The two of them bent over the hood together, arguing over carburetor tuning, laughing when grease smeared like war paint across their faces. And when the engine finally roared to life after months of labor, Sophia felt something ignite in her chest, a dream, reckless and impossible, racing. But dreams have a cruel way of shattering. The marshal's arm slashed downward. Engine screamed. Tires shrieked. The crowd roared like a living beast. Sophia slammed her foot on the gas. The Mustang lunged forward, the wheel trembling in her grip, her heart pounding like a drum of war. For the first few seconds, all she could hear was the engine's guttural roar and her father's voice in her memory. "Never let them tell you what you can't do." The others surged ahead in their glittering machines, but Sophia's jaw tightened. She wasn't here for their approval. She wasn't here to blend in. She was here to fight. And as the Mustang clawed its way down the straightaway, Sophia couldn't help but wonder, would this race be her rise or her ruin? But the story of how she reached this starting line, of loss, betrayal, and a rival who would stop at nothing, had begun long before tonight. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated, told you didn't belong, only to feel that fire in your chest push you forward anyway? Morning light bled through the high windows of Carter Auto, turning dust into floating stars. The shop smelled like coffee gone cold and warm metal. Somewhere in the back, the radio whispered an old rock ballad, the kind you only hear at 2 a.m. or in empty garages at dawn. Sophia stacked invoices on the counter and tried to ignore the feeling that the room was too quiet, too still. Her father had always filled it with noise, wrench clicks, low humming, terrible jokes delivered deadpan until she snorted. Now there was only the ticking of the wall clock and the steady throb of pain behind her eyes. 3 heart attacks, come like lightning. The first scared them. The second warned them. The third took him. The funeral had smelled of lilies and oil-stained jackets. Men who had raced with Daniel Carter lined up to pat Sophia's shoulder like she was a hood that needed closing. He was the best, they said. He taught me everything, they said. He'd be proud, they said. Proud didn't pay the bank. When the loan officer arrived, thin tie, thinner smile. He looked at the lifts and the drawers of labeled sockets with the confusion of a tourist staring at a subway map. Ms. Carter, he began, already sorry. With your father gone, we have concerns about viability. Sophia folded her arms. Our customers trust us. We're busy. Trust isn't collateral. He slid papers forward. His pen tapped. Outstanding balances. A history tied to your father's name. And well, his eyes flickered. You're young. You'll want something more suitable. The word landed like a slap. She signed nothing. She smiled at no one. After he left, she stood in the middle of the bay, hands shaking, and whispered to the empty lifts, I'm not going anywhere. The next morning, Robert Kane walked in like he owned the floor. Tailored suit, polished shoes, a cologne that cost more than a set of tires. He glanced around the shop the way a developer looks at a field he plans to pave. Ms. Carter, he said, offering a hand he didn't expect her to take. Robert. Kane Performance. She knew the name. Everyone did. He'd swallowed small shops one deed at a time. Her father called him a vulture dressed like a peacock. I'm sorry about your loss, he said, sympathetic eyes, hollow voice. Daniel was formidable. Sophia waited. I'll be direct. He set a folder on the counter and turned it toward her. Buyout. Generous, given the circumstances. You get to walk away clean. Start fresh. School, maybe. There it was. School. Fresh start. Suitable. And if I don't? She asked. Kane's smile didn't move. I understand sentiment. I do. But this is a man's industry. Hard choices. Heavy doors. I wouldn't want to see you crushed by them. A long, cold pause. You could hear the fluorescent lights humming. Mr. Kane, she said quietly, these doors don't crush me. They open for me. He blinked once. Twice. Then he gathered the folder. You'll reconsider, he said, as if it were a fact. When he left, the radio fizzed into static and then silence. Sophia stared at her father's red shop stool. It still held the curve of him. She put both hands on the counter and breathed. Do you know that feeling? When someone smiles at you and doesn't see you at all. That afternoon, the bell over the front door rang hard, like someone didn't have time to be polite. Michael Alvarez strode in with a battered toolbox and a jaw set for war. Sun had burned his cheeks the color of rust. He'd been Daniel's best friend since late-night street races were timed by cigarette burns. You think I'm letting you carry this alone, he said, swinging the toolbox onto the counter. Kid, your dad would haunt me if I did. Sophia tried to speak. Nothing came. Michael reached across and pulled her into a rough hug that smelled like old leather and gasoline. All right, he said, stepping back. We fight. They fought. Days blurred into nights. Sophia learned spreadsheets by lamplight and brake lines by memory. She called every customer who owed so much as a handshake. Michael managed the skeptical ones who stared at Sophia's ponytail like it was a joke and said, Sweetheart, can I talk to the real mechanic? She is the real mechanic, Michael would answer without a smile. You want your car back this year, let her work. Word spread. Slowly. A pickup truck left purring. A minivan stopped leaking. An old man wiped tears when his wife's convertible came back to life, its engine asoft him. Those people told other people, and some of Daniel's loyalists found their way back, sheepish but grateful. Still, pressure squeezed. Deliveries that used to be on time arrived late. Suppliers who'd extended credit for years suddenly changed policy. Nothing personal, one whispered on the phone. Kane's got reach. Kane's flyers appeared under windshield wipers up and down Main Street. State-of-the-art service. Certified pros. We fix what others can't. The final insult came in a glossy mailer that landed on Carter Auto's counter like a dead bird. Coming soon. Kane Performance Expansion. Right next door. Daniel had always planned to buy that lot and build out the bays. He'd eaten beans and kept the old fridge running one more year to save toward it. Kane had bought it overnight. That night, Sophia climbed the narrow steps to the small apartment above the shop, kicked off her boots, and collapsed. She didn't try to be brave. Not for 10 minutes. 10 long minutes, she let it out. Rage, grief, the helpless sound you make when everything you love is being carved away by someone with clean hands. Then she wiped her face with the heel of her palm. She made coffee strong enough to be illegal. And she went back downstairs. The Mustang waited under a dusty tarp. The car she and her father had resurrected. She pulled the cover back like unveiling a monument. The leather steering wheel carried the ghost of his grip. She turned the key. The engine coughed, then settled into a low, warm rumble. A lullaby and a battle hymn. She drove. City lights fell away. County roads unwound in long, dark ribbons. Wind squeezed through the cracked seal of the driver's window and whispered at her ear. Her hands found the rhythm they'd learned years ago, the one her father taught her, the one that says, listen first, then push. She didn't plan to end up at Riverside Speedway, but the gates were open for maintenance, and fate doesn't always need permission. She steered onto the old track, tires thumping over seams like heartbeats. Silence. Then throttle. The Mustang bolted. The world narrowed to lines and light, and the note of the engine rising sharp and clean. Sophia forgot the bank. She forgot the suit. She forgot the flyers and the looks and the word suitable. There was only the car and the curve and her father's voice in the back of her mind. Trust what you've built. Respect it. Then ask it for more. Lap after lap, she pushed. Her breathing matched the corners. Her thoughts emptied. The fear drained out and left focus behind, bright and cold. When she finally braked to a halt, a slow clap echoed from the stands. An older man descended the concrete steps with the careful, dangerous grace of someone who knows engines and people, and where both tend to fail. Baseball cap. Weathered hands. Eyes like measuring tools. Didn't mean to spook you, he said, voice warm gravel. Name's John Pierce. I own this place. Sophia climbed out, cheeks flushed, hair sticking to her temple. I'm sorry, Mr. Pierce. The gate was open, he finished. And I'm not mad. He jerked a thumb toward the track. You drive like Dan. Faster in. Braver out. A beat. Maybe a touch meaner on exit. Sophia half laughed, then felt her chest twist. He taught me everything. He taught you well. John studied the Mustang, then her stance, then the sort of tired that sits just behind a person's eyes. 3 months from now, we host the Regional Amateur Championship. 50 grand purse. Sponsors sniffing around. Cameras. The whole circus. I'm a mechanic, she said. It came out like a defense. He shrugged. Mechanics make the best racers. They don't ask for miracles. They build them. Wind skimmed the bleachers, carrying the smell of damp concrete and hot brakes. Somewhere a flag snapped. The track lights hummed like a living thing. John hooked his thumbs in his belt. Look, even if you don't win, people love a story. Underdog. Legacy. A woman with steel in her spine. Don't love that last part? Too bad. It sells tickets. It sells trust. He tilted his head. If you want to save that shop, you might not need a loan. You might need a finish. Sophia stared at the dark oval. She could almost see it, her name on the board, customers calling. The phone ringing off the hook, a line of cars outside Carter Auto, like a parade. And if I wreck? She asked softly. John's mouth twitched. Then you'll learn. And you'll try again. That's racing. He glanced at the photo taped to her dash. Dan used to sit right up there and heckle my corners from a third row. He said you'd outrun him one day. A small smile. He was a terrible liar. A long, silent moment. The kind that splits a life into before and after. Sophia looked down at her hands. Calloused. Steady now. I don't have a crew, she said. You've got one friend with a toolbox, John replied. Start there. She drove home in the thin blue of almost morning, the Mustang purring like a cat that knew a secret. She parked, sat in the driver's seat until the sunrise found the shop windows, and made a decision that felt like stepping into a moving river. When the clock hit 8, she called Michael. He answered on the first ring. Talk to me. I'm going to race, she said. The words felt dangerous and right. Regionals. 3 months. Silence. She heard him inhale. Then a soft, disbelieving laugh. Your old man would say it's too damn risky. And then, she asked, smiling despite herself. And then he'd ask what we're doing to the engine. Sophia let the quiet sit between them, warm and full, like hands around a mug. Okay, Michael said. Metal clanged on his end. Operation, what do we call it? She looked at the Mustang's hood badge, catching the morning light. Operation Underdog. Hell yes. She could hear him, already moving, already planning. We'll keep the shop running by day. At night, we turn that car into something that scares men with money. Sophia closed her eyes and saw the track. The flag. The turn-in cone on 2. The line that would be hers if she had the nerve to hold it. Michael. Yeah. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said. Save it for the podium. They both laughed. The sound shook dust from the rafters. For the first time since the funeral, Sophia felt the weight shift off her chest. Not gone, but lighter, manageable. She hung up. She opened the shop. She flipped the sign to open with a hand that didn't tremble. Outside, a delivery truck rumbled past with Kane Performance plastered along its side. The driver looked over and smirked. Sophia smoothed the front of her coveralls and smiled back. Slow, certain. The kind of smile you wear when you know something your enemy doesn't. Would you take that leap? If the thing you loved was dying, would you bet it all on a dream and a rebuilt engine? The work would begin that night. Bolts, blueprints, blisters. But someone else had made plans for the Mustang too. Plans that crept in the dark, sugar-sweet, and razor-cold, waiting to turn hope into smoke. The garage hummed long past midnight, lit only by the harsh glare of fluorescent tubes that buzzed like angry bees overhead. Every surface was cluttered with tools, wires, and greasy rags. Sophia's Mustang sat in the center like a wounded animal, being reforged into something dangerous. By day, Sophia and Michael patched brake lines and swapped tires for customers, the register barely keeping pace with the bills. By night, they stripped, tuned, and rebuilt the Mustang until their hands shook and their eyes burned. You've got the steering tighter than a drum, Michael muttered, wiping sweat with the back of his arm. But the suspension still fights on corners. Sophia, half buried in the engine bay, didn't look up. Then we'll tame it, one bolt at a time. He chuckled softly. You sound just like Dan. She froze for half a second, then forced herself to keep working. Every spare hour, Sophia hit the track. The Mustang screamed against the night air, headlights cutting ribbons through the dark. Each lap was a war between fear and hunger. She studied every line, every breaking point, every echo of her father's lessons. Her arms ached, her reflexes sharpened, and with each pass, she could almost feel him beside her, whispering corrections, nodding approval. But outside the track, whispers of another kind began to follow. That Carter girl's losing it. She'll kill herself out there. She doesn't stand a chance against Kane's team. Harrison, no Robert Kane, showed up one afternoon, strolling into the garage like he was doing her a favor. Racing. His laugh was polished, rehearsed. Sophia, this isn't a fairy tale. This isn't the little mechanic who could. These are men with teams, sponsors, and decades of experience. She met his gaze, her coveralls stained, her hands blackened with grease. Men crash. Men choke. Men bleed. So do women. So do I. The track doesn't care. His smile flickered, just for an instant. Then it returned, cold and smooth. You're gambling everything, he warned. And when it breaks, when you break, I'll still be here. With my offer. He left the words like oil stains on the floor, hard to scrub out. 2 weeks before the race, Sophia returned from the track at dawn. The garage door hung slightly ajar. Her stomach dropped. Inside, the Mustang was silent, violated. The gas tank reeked of sugar, the sweet rot of sabotage. The brake lines were sliced clean. Essential parts of the engine, gone. She dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as they hovered above the wreckage. Whoever had done this hadn't just wanted to stop her. They wanted her destroyed. For 10 minutes, Sophia allowed despair. 10 minutes of fists pounding the concrete, of tears running down grease-streaked cheeks, of words she'd never say in daylight. Then she stood, wiped her face with oil-stained hands, and whispered into the empty garage. "You picked the wrong girl." That morning, Sophia and Michael lit every fuse they had left. Old customers answered phones with surprise, then determination. "For Dan's girl? Yeah, I'll check the junkyard." A retired machinist arrived with a toolbox and a promise. "I'll build you what I can't find." Even mechanics from other shops, rivals, once slipped her parts onto the table. Whispers carried. Even some of Kane's own employees, tired of his arrogance, quietly tipped Sophia off about his team setup. It became a war council in greasy coveralls. A patchwork army. For 7 days, Sophia barely slept. Coffee replaced meals. Her fingers split and bled from endless wrenching. She napped on the couch between welds, waking with bolts pressed into her palms. Michael hovered like a guard dog, pacing, muttering prayers, threatening to throttle anyone who came near the garage uninvited. The Mustang rose again, piece by piece. Stronger, meaner, born from sabotage, remade with vengeance. 3 days before the race, Sophia rolled onto the track for a test run. The sun hung low, bleeding orange across the asphalt. Michael leaned against the wall, stopwatch in hand, jaw tight. Sophia revved. Let the Mustang roar. 1 lap. 2. 3. Each faster than the last. The car responded like it had something to prove, every corner crisp, every straight alive with fury. When she screeched to a stop, Michael stared at the stopwatch, then at her. "That would have put you top 5 last year," he said, voice low with awe. Sophia climbed out breathless, hands shaking not from fear, but from possibility. "Dad would be proud," Michael added softly. She looked away, afraid of the tears that threatened. That night, alone in the garage, Sophia sat on her father's stool. The walls seemed too close, the silence too heavy. She stared at his photo, taped to the cabinet. "I'm scared, Dad. What if I can't do this? What if I fail?" Her eyes fell on a framed quote above his workbench, one he'd loved to repeat until it annoyed her. "The one who says it can't be done should not interrupt the one doing it." She let the words settle. Heavy. True. She rose, wiped her eyes, and went back to work. Race day was coming. The stands would be full. The cameras waiting. The men laughing. But Sophia had no idea just how brutal the fight on that track would become. And you? If your dream was hanging by a thread, would you still risk everything for one chance to prove them wrong? Race morning broke clean and cool. The kind of air that slides into your lungs and says, "Today counts." Carter Auto rolled into Riverside like a band showing up to a stadium with thrift store instruments. Michael parked the borrowed trailer beside haulers tall as apartment buildings. Crew in matching uniforms swarmed around polished machines. Our pit was a folding table, a milk crate of tools, a cooler full of water, and stubborn faith. "Eyes up," Michael said, tapping my shoulder. "No one here gets to tell you who you are." I nodded. My helmet felt heavier than usual. My hands shook. I hid them in my pockets until they remembered courage. Everywhere noise. Compressors hissing. Impact guns barking. Someone's playlist fighting the announcer's voice. The smell of race fuel and hot rubber painted the air. Then silence. Brief and total. Walking into the driver's meeting did that, like stepping into church. 25 drivers. 24 men and me. Heads turned. Some smirked. Some didn't bother hiding it. From the doorway, Robert Kane smiled like a blade. "Sophia," he said, all charm, all performance. "How brave of you to show." Before I could answer, the race director rapped the podium. Safety. Flags. Pit speed. Warnings about aggression in turn 3. as if we all didn't come here to be a little bit reckless. His voice droned. My pulse didn't. I stood in the back, felt eyes crawl over me, and kept breathing. As people filed out, Kane stepped in close. His cologne hit first, clean, expensive, false. Last chance to withdraw, he murmured. Mechanical failure is so understandable. Noted, I said. He held my gaze a beat too long. Your father knew when to quit. I smiled with all my teeth. He also knew when to floor it. His jaw twitched. Back at our pit, Michael pressed a walkie into my hand. Cheap, but it talks. Use it. I suited up. The Mustang ticked and creaked as heat soaked through the engine bay. I slid into the seat, and the world narrowed to straps, switches, gauges, breath. I touched the photo on my dash. Lightning Dan, grease-smudged smile, his arm wrapped around a smaller me. Ride with me, I whispered. We rolled for qualifying. 1 outlap to feel the track, then 3 flying laps. The first was careful. The second, not. By the third, the Mustang and I were speaking the same language again. Brake, rotate, throttle, now. The back straight blurred. Turn 4 opened like a dare. When I crossed, I held my breath until I pulled in. Michael checked the board. He didn't smile. He exhaled like he'd been underwater. P8, he said. You're in the fight. 8. Middle of the pack. Right where the storm lives. Kane's car, blue and silver, sleek and expensive, sat in P2. His hired driver leaned on the wall, watching me like I was entertainment between commercials. I ate half a sandwich. I tasted none of it. Fans filtered in, filling the stands with noise and color. A reporter I recognized from local stories, Lena Ortiz, raised a hand in hello. I nodded back. My mouth was too dry for words. Listen, Michael said, kneeling eye level. You know your car. They know their budgets. That's not the same. You run your race. Keep your line. Save your tires. Take what they give you. If they give you nothing, take it anyway. I laughed. Short. Tight. Copy. Engines fired. The grid formed. I rolled into P8, the taillights of P7 glowing ahead like temptations. The pace car let us out. The crowd rose. The sun flashed off 1,000 sunglasses. A flag fluttered. My heart pounded in my mouth. The pace car dove in. Green. Chaos. The pack lunged, 25 snarling animals, fighting for the same slice of asphalt. Someone dive-bombed into turn 1 and kissed the apron. 2 others traded paint. I held my line. I lost a spot. Fine. Live to fight. Lap 4, I took it back on exit. Short breath. Focus. 50 laps. Endurance and nerve. The field settled into rhythm, if you can call men with fire in their veins a rhythm. I found air. I found space. The Mustang felt eager and mean. We climbed to P9, P8, P7. The board kept flickering. The radio cracked. Temps are good, Michael said. Long race. Don't go hunting ghosts. I kept my hands light, my eyes far. The wall flew by in a gray rush. The world narrowed to inputs and feedback, a conversation at speed. I could feel my father's lessons in the car's bones. Ease in. Straighten your hands. Squeeze. Let it walk out to the wall. Don't fight what wants to run. Half distance. Then a tremor in the dash. A needle that shouldn't move. Oil pressure flickered. Dropped. Came back. Dropped again in the banking. Cold slid through my spine. I lifted slightly through 2, rolled back on in the short chute, held my breath through 3. The needle bobbed like a heartbeat learning a bad song. Talk to me, Michael said. Oil pressure just went weird, I answered. Corners. Silence. Then calm. Nurse it. Don't kill it. Back your entry. Roll the throttle. We need the finish more than the glory. I nodded to a person who couldn't see me. Backed my entry. Rolled. The lap time cost me 2/10. Then 3. P7 pressed in my mirror. I made my car wide without being rude. You ever feel that? The moment you decide to be smart when the world screams at you to be brave? The pack began to make mistakes. Men who'd gone too hard too early slid wide, cooked brakes, boiled tires. I picked up what they dropped. P6. P5. 20 laps to go. Oil pressure still flirting with disaster. The Mustang's voice changed, harsher on top, a complaint we could not afford to hear in words. 10 to go. Up ahead, P3 and P4 were fighting like brothers who share an inheritance. They touched once, twice. On the front straight, they locked wheels, wobbled, and finally snapped. Smoke. Debris. A had gone airborne like a gull. Caution. Caution, the radio barked, but we were already past the worst of it. I breathed out only after I counted 2 heartbeats. Yellow flags. Pace car. The field bunched like a fist. Reset, Michael said. 5 to go when we go green. You're P4. I flexed my fingers against the wheel. My left calf quivered from the brake. Sweat stung my eyes. I blinked and tasted salt. The Mustang idled like a predator. Ahead, Kane's driver sat in P3. His rear tires were cooked, the sidewall scuffed, the car a little too nervous, on throttle. We rolled. The pace car peeled in. Green. I stayed tucked on the restart. No hero moves. Turn 1 came fast and hungry. I lifted a breath early, squared the corner, and cut a cleaner exit. The blue and silver ahead twitched. He defended the inside into 2. I feinted high. He bit. I crossed under him and put my nose where his spotter didn't want me. Side by side down the back. My engine protested. The oil needle dipped low like a threat. Not there, Michael warned. But turn 3 is a truth teller. I braked a hair earlier, rotated a touch more, and let the Mustang breathe on exit. He slid up, kissed the wall. Sparks flared. I shot through the gap he made, tires singing. The car walking out to the paint like it knew the way home. P3. 2 laps. Then 1. White flag. The crowd felt like thunder. I kept my eyes forward. I listened for death in the engine and heard only defiance. On the last corner, the Mustang wanted to break loose and dance. I held her smooth and kind. No heroics. No miracles. Just everything we had, given clean. Checker. I crossed in 3rd. For a moment, there was only a strange, ringing quiet. I could see the stands moving. I could see Michael pounding the pit wall. But the sound lagged behind like it had to run to catch me. Then a hit. A wave of noise. Applause. Shouts. My name from the announcer's mouth like it belonged there. 3rd place in her competitive debut, Sophia Carter. I braked into pit lane with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Michael yanked my door open before the car stopped. He laughed, choked, and pulled me half out of the seat into a hug that made my ribs creak. You did it, he said into my helmet. Kid, you really did it. I was laughing and crying and trying to breathe at the same time. We did it. A camera light flared. Lena Ortiz squeezed through the bodies, mic in hand, eyes bright. Sophia. The drive of the day. How does it feel to silence the doubters? I wiped my face with a sleeve, found the lens, and, just for a second, found every person who ever asked me to be smaller. It feels like proof, I said. Proof that hard work is louder than doubt. That a mechanic's hands can build a dream and drive it too. I pointed to our makeshift pit. This is my crew. Volunteers. Friends. Family. My father taught me engines, but they carried me today. She angled the mic. What do you say to people who said a woman couldn't hang at this level? I smiled. Not sweet. Not cruel. Just true. Engines don't care who's turning the wrench or holding the wheel. They care if you listen. They care if you respect them. That's all. Lena grinned like she'd found gold. What's next for Carter Auto? We open Monday, I said. Bring your tired cars. We'll give them a second life. Over Lena's shoulder, I saw Robert Kane. He was watching. His driver scowled, helmet in hand, glove dangling like the end of a temper. Kane's face was a storm held behind glass. When the interviews wound down and the photographers drifted away, Kane passed close enough to share air. Impressive, he said, each letter polished to a shine. For an amateur. Thank you, I replied. For the motivation. His smile curdled. He walked on. We carried the trophy, small, heavy, perfect, back to our trailer. Fans stopped us to slap my shoulder, to shove hats and ticket stubs at me for signatures. A little girl in a too-big hoodie stared at the Mustang like it was a dragon. "Can girls really do this?" she whispered. I crouched. "They already are." She smiled. "The kind that changes a person." Night settled. The track lights hummed like tired bees. Our crew, friends, customers, people who had no reason to show up except belief, lingered around folding chairs and stories. Michael set the trophy on the table and tapped it with a knuckle. "To Lightning Dan," he said. "To Lightning Dan," we echoed, and the metal rang. Have you ever felt your life click into gear? That precise second when all the miles behind you line up and push you forward? On Monday morning, the phones would explode. Customers, reporters, and one call Sophia didn't expect, an offer with money, power, and strings so tight they could choke a legacy. Would she sell the wheel or build a road no one saw coming? Monday morning didn't feel real. The phone at Carter Auto rang until the receiver was warm against Sophia's ear. Appointments. Congratulations. Sponsors asking questions she didn't yet have answers for. Michael hustled from the garage to the office, his coveralls smeared with grease, his grin glued in place. "You're famous," he teased, dropping a set of keys on the counter. "Try not to forget the little people when Hollywood calls." Sophia smirked, exhaustion painted in the shadows under her eyes. If Hollywood wants oil changes and brake jobs, maybe. The shop was alive again, tools singing, cars humming, voices filling the hollow Daniel Carter had left behind. For the first time in months, hope didn't feel like theft. But hope has sharp edges. The bell above the office door chimed. Robert Kane stepped inside, without his usual polished entourage. No cologne heavy enough to smother an engine's breath. Just a man in a too-perfect suit that looked out of place among grease stains and socket sets. Michael stiffened in the corner. "Want me to throw him out?" "No," Sophia said softly. "Let him talk." Kane's eyes tracked the bustle of the garage. Cars half disassembled. Customers leaning on counters. Sophia's name on everyone's lips. He looked older somehow. Tired. "Quite the turnaround," he murmured. "You've built yourself quite the story." Sophia folded her arms. "It's not a story. It's work." He ignored the jab, placed a folder on the counter. "Déjà vu. This time," he said carefully, "it's not an offer for the garage." He leaned closer, lowering his voice so only she heard. "It's an offer for you. A seat at Kane Performance Racing. Full sponsorship. A professional crew. The kind of chance your father never had." The words hung heavy. Michael let out a sharp laugh. "You want her to drive for you?" Kane didn't look at him. The sponsors saw the race. They saw the response. "You're not just talent, Sophia. You're marketable. People love an underdog. And underdogs sell." Sophia's chest tightened. A seat. A team. Real equipment. A future Daniel had once dreamed about for himself. But at what cost? That evening, Sophia sat alone in the bleachers of Riverside Speedway, the track bathed in silver moonlight. The Mustang rested in the shadows below, still carrying the scars of its battle. She closed her eyes. The memory of the race still lived in her chest, the roar of the crowd, the rush of the final lap, the way the trophy's weight had felt like a promise. "Dad," she whispered to the empty air, "what would you do?" The bleachers groaned as someone climbed up. John Pierce, the track owner, eased down beside her with 2 styrofoam cups of coffee. "I heard about Kane's offer," he said simply. "Of course you did," Sophia muttered. John sipped, letting the silence stretch. "Your father had offers once too, after his big regional win. Contracts on the table. Bright lights, fast tracks." Sophia turned. "Why didn't he take them?" John's weathered face softened. "Because your mom had just told him she was pregnant." He looked at the papers, then at the garage, then at her. "Said some victories aren't about trophies." The night air stirred, cool against Sophia's cheek. She swallowed hard. "There's no right choice here, kid," John added gently. "Just your choice." The next day, Kane returned. He didn't bother with charm this time. Just steel. "Have you decided?" he asked. Sophia slid a packet of papers across the counter. Her counteroffer. "I won't drive for you," she said. but I'll partner with you. Carter Auto becomes a custom performance shop. Your expansion lot? We turn it into a racing academy. For everyone, kids, women, anyone who's told they don't belong. You get your sponsors happy. I keep my father's legacy alive. Kane's jaw tightened. You think you're in a position to dictate terms? She leaned in. I think I'm a mechanic's daughter who beat your pro team with a rebuilt streetcar and a crew of volunteers. And the sponsors know it. You need me more than I need you. For a long moment, Kane said nothing. His eyes searched hers, calculating, weighing. Finally, he extended his hand. You drive a hard bargain, Carter. His mouth twitched. Your father would be proud. 6 months later, the Carter Kane Racing Academy opened its gates. A line of kids in 2 big helmets stood beside battered cars, their eyes wide with the kind of dreams Sophia once thought were impossible. 4 of them were girls. Michael barked instructions from the pit lane, already everyone's grumpy uncle. Kane watched from a distance, arms folded, grudgingly respectful. Sophia wore her jumpsuit with Carter stitched across the back, grease on her hands, hope in her heart. The garage thrived. Customers drove from counties away. The Mustang gleamed under its tarp, ready whenever Sophia felt the itch to race again. On the anniversary of her father's death, Sophia drove out to the cemetery. She carried fresh flowers in one hand and her third-place trophy in the other. She knelt, placed both by the stone etched with Daniel Carter, Lightning Dan. You were right, Dad, she whispered. Some victories aren't about trophies. They're about staying true to yourself, even when the whole world tells you you can't. She noticed a small box tucked near the headstone. Inside lay a battered stopwatch, Daniel's lucky charm from his racing days. A note in Michael's handwriting read, "He wanted you to have this when you were ready. He always knew you would be." Sophia clutched it to her chest, tears hot and unashamed. For the first time, the weight of loss didn't feel like chains. It felt like wings. She stood, the wind whispering through the grass, the sun breaking over the horizon. The greatest race wasn't on any track. It was the daily choice to keep going, to honor the ones who believed, and to prove that no matter how many times the world tried to knock her down, she would keep driving. One lap at a time. What about you? If life told you to quit, if the odds towered against you, would you walk away, or would you keep driving until the world finally saw you?